Hey, what is up everybody? Kobe Harris here from Team No Leek. Today I'm going to be bringing you yet another deck profile, and today it's going to be on my Reshiram and Charizard-GX deck, and we're going to go ahead and get right into the list here. Originally with Reshiram and Charizard, I wanted to be playing a more teched out build with cards such as Jirachi, Lele, Mew, Shining Lugia, and Turtonator to kind of shore up some bad matchups and maybe get a little bit of extra consistency in there. But as I kind of looked at Keon Amini's list and read his article a little bit, I kind of came to the same conclusion that he did, that the Volcanion is just really the best card to play with Reshizard at a high count, as both of the attacks on this card prove to be very valuable. Flare Starter gives you a lot of options going second, and we know how powerful going first has been in this game, so a deck that can take advantage of going second very well can really have a lot of success in this format. And don't sleep on this high heat blast attack either, as it does do a solid 2-shot number with 110. And then on things like Zapdos and Jirachi and a few other cards, you can really be taking some easy one-hit knockouts, especially with the likes of Professor Kukui in the deck. So I really think it's a great, strong archetype that has a lot of versatility, so let's just get right into it. We have one count of the Eevee and Snorlax-GX. It's really just a good option to have against Zoroark decks, so you can use that Megaton Friends and Dump Truck Press attacks. So you'll be getting a lot of value out of this, as it is just an alternate type attacker for your Reshiram and Charizard. Then we of course have two of the big boys themselves here in the Reshiram and Charizard. Everything about this card is so solid, from its typing to all three of its attacks being incredibly strong. You know, Outrage gets a ton of value, and even more than I think a lot of people expected, as, you know, Outrage has always been a pretty decent attack, but it's never been on a Pokemon with 270 HP, so you can really take advantage of that and get some even big one-shots off without Outrage attack if your opponent doesn't play around it. Then we have the Flare Strike attack, of course, which just does a solid 230, which will really knock out almost anything in the format except for opposing Reshiram and Charizards. And we do have a couple techs in that to increase our matchup in the mirror, as well as the Double Blaze GX. If you can get as many energies on it as 6, it will do 300 damage, so another incredibly strong attack for 3 energies. Even if you can't get the full effect, it's still nice to have a 3 energy attack that does 200 damage as opposed to the 4 energy Flare Strike. So definitely a strong card. And then of course the 4 Volcanion that we already talked about, you know, just such a strong card and such a great card that you can use in the early game to get set up. We'll go ahead and get into our items here. We have 4 of the Custom Catchers. Custom Catcher isn't a card that I was incredibly sold on going into this format with this deck, but it's really proved its worth as giving you just kind of that Guzma or Lysander option off of something like a Greens. So definitely a card I would consider keeping in the list, and I've been loving it so far. Then we have 2 Blowers. I like 2 Blower in this deck. It really gives you a lot of versatility, especially against one-prize matchups, so definitely is a strong card that I've been playing a ton in this format, as I think it's really strong right now. 2 Fiery Flint has been perfect. You don't need any more than that, and it's really just one of the best deck thinning cards you have in the game right now, and it'll get you all those energies and a searchable energies at that with Green's Exploration, so a very strong card here. We're then playing the 3 Fire Crystals just to get a little bit of recovery to get our welders off more consistently after things like Let Loose, or even just after a Reshiram and Charizard-GX has been knocked out. So definitely a good energy package here with the 2 Fiery Flints and the 3 Fire Crystals. Then we're playing a couple healing cards here with our Max Potion, which is going to be really strong against these one-prize decks, as you can just Max Potion and then set up more with Welder and even an attachment, so you can get off a Double Blaze GX after a Max Potion. 4 Nest Ball, 4 Pokégear, a Stretcher, 2 Switch. 2 Switch is something that Keon had been talking about after his win as being a very important aspect of the deck, as you can kind of get stalled out if you don't play, and you really just want to keep your energies on board a lot of the time. So while you do have those energies to retreat with, you may not even want to, so 2 Switch is very good in the deck. Then we're playing a pretty high stadium count with 2 Power Plants to give us a lot of effectiveness against Zoroark GX, which can kind of be a tougher matchup with additions like Slowking, and it's really just a strong card against even things like Tapu Koko GX. We also have the 1 Heat Factory, of course, just to give us a little bit of supplementary draw with our fire energies. Then, like I was mentioning about our healing package, we have an Acerola, which has been very clutch for me in testing, and I've gotten a lot of use out of it. Being able to search with greens if you know you're not going to get one-shotted can just be very daunting for your opponent, and they know they're going to have to remove your hand or knock out your active Pokemon to get around that. So very strong card in the deck, and I probably wouldn't cut it. Then we have our 4 greens. That's going to be the main engine of this deck, as it is just such a strong card. Searching for 2 trainers, especially when you have trainers that can do a lot of things like custom catcher, search energies like flints and crystals, as well as switch cards and field blowers. So really strong card in this deck that I'm loving so far, as opposed to the Jirachi variant. Then our other supporters, of course, are going to be the 4 Welder. That's going to be key for getting our fire energies off, and you know, just the card that makes all these fire decks go around in this format. A couple more supporters here. We got 2 Guzma. You know, we hit so hard that we don't really care a lot of the time what we're hitting into, but you know, there is going to be some GX attacks, some GX Pokemon, sorry, that we are going to want to target down with Guzma just to keep a favorable prize trade for us. So 2 Guzma is going to be really key here, along with the 4 custom catchers. 1 Judge to kind of give us that little bit of hand disruption, and 2 Kukuis are going to be really big with these choice bands in letting us hit 280 with a Flare Strike to knock out opposing Reshiram Charizards, as well as giving this high Heat Blast attack a 130 cap on non-GXs, which is a very great number. So we're also playing 2 choice bands as our last damage modifier and 11 energies, which seems very solid to me. So let's just go ahead and get right into the games here. Today's really been my first day playing around with this Reshizard deck online, and I've been loving it so far. You know, it's just a strong archetype, and even when you dead draw or go against something that's supposed to be a bad matchup, it's just so powerful that you can get around that so many times. And even the archetypes that are supposed to be strong against it, like Zoroark and things like Nagquag, could have a hard time dealing with the Eevee and Snorlax-GX. So I'm really excited to show you guys what this deck can do today. Go ahead and call Tails. We, of course, are still going to want to go first. We get a mulligan there. Curious to see what my opponent is going to be playing. We'll go ahead and get to see that. We only had to take 1 mulligan. Looks like my opponent is taking 2. Not really a great hand here, but we can probably work with it. I would have liked to start the Volcanion, but the Nest Ball and the Switch will act just the same. And I'm kind of expecting this to be a Hoopa and Umbreon deck, so these 2 Kukuis could come in really clutch against the Hoopas. 2 mulligans, so those cards are really going to help a ton, and this greens is absolutely fantastic here. Does appear to be a Hoopa and Umbreon deck, so just going to go ahead and throw a Volcanion down. Play this Pokégear just so I can know what I'm wanting to do off the greens. I think I might want to hold on to this hand for a while, so I'm just going to take this Acerola here. Get our attachment onto this Volcanion. Nest Ball, go ahead and get us another Volcanion. And then use Green's Exploration. I'm going to go ahead and get set up to use a custom catcher. Actually, with the Guzma in my hand, I think the second custom catcher is going to be pretty useless at this point, as I could just favor Guzma instead. But it actually looks like we've prized both of our Fiery Flints, which isn't great for us here. So I'm going to just go ahead and take a Judge here, so we can try to get into our energies. Yeah, prizing both of those Fiery Flints hurts quite a bit. And I might as well take the other custom catcher here, since we cannot get into our energies. And then I'm just going to pass. I was debating playing the Switch, but I don't think it's really worth it. I don't think this deck probably plays many outs to Judge or Let Loose, so I think keeping the Reshiram and Charizard in the active is going to be the play for now. I'm just seeing Attach and a Cynthia. Yeah, that's kind of the problem with this dark deck here, is it really just has to play a draw supporter every turn to keep up, and see the Hoopa there, but might not do my opponent a ton of good. I'm going to switch into this Volcanion here. And I'm debating the judge. I think the judge wouldn't be bad. My opponent has 5 cards in hand, so maybe we can get them to brick off of this. And I wasn't really loving that hand in the first place. Not a whole lot better here, but we're going to go ahead and get an attack off. Use Flare Starter. Hopefully we can get into another energy next turn and start using this high heat blast attack. See a Cynthia from my opponent. They're going to go ahead and start setting up this Hoopa. Not sure if they know if I'm playing the Kukuis, but that's going to be a huge card in this matchup here. Power Plant's going to be kind of useless, so I'll hold on to it for when they play their Black Market Prism Star, sorry. Play a Nest Ball, go ahead and thin my deck out a little bit. And then the problem with this deck is it doesn't really get to start going until you start going, so I'm just going to take my time, use a couple Flare Starters. And next turn we should be able to get a few attacks off. I don't really love having this Reshiram and Charizard-GX on my board against this non-GX deck, so hopefully finding an Acerola to pick that up later on in the game. See another Cynthia from my opponent, so they seem to be drawing pretty well here. Played 2 Pokégear, 3 Cynthias, so still have a ton of resources left. See another Hoopa come down. Interesting to see if my opponent's going to bench. Yep, they go ahead and bench the 3rd Hoopa. And as we only do play 2 Kukui, this could get a little bit sketchy with us, as we can't one-shot all of them. Just see an attack from my opponent. Now we get the Pokégear. Go ahead and get a greens. Use greens. I'm just going to get a Fire Crystal and a Welder, as I expect this Volcanion to be knocked out next turn, so really just being able to throw another Volcanion right back at them is going to be great. And we do get the Kukui. That's going to be pretty great for us here. Unfortunately, we don't have any custom catcher pieces here, so being able to knock out this Hoopa is seeming like quite the long shot in this matchup, but if they do miss the energy, we could be rolling. See an Ultra Ball, I would kind of expect, yep, and it does look like they've missed the energy here, so they are going to go ahead and let loose and keep digging for that. And I don't really like to see that let loose here, as I was really valuing that Kukui I had in hand. And we do get it right back. And they just, wow, just a pass there. Gonna go ahead and play the Pokégear. Not really what I was hoping to see. I was looking more for a greens here. But being able to Guzma up this Spiritomb is gonna be nice, as well as removing this Volcanion from the one-shot threat. And we're just gonna high heat blast. Now my opponent's gonna have to have an immediate response to this Volcanion here. And we do have Welder Fire Crystal next turn, so if they do knock out this one, they're going to have a couple answers after that, because I do have the Kukui, and this Hoopa won't get it done alone. Looks like they actually have missed the energy again, so they're just gonna use a custom catcher out of desperation. Right now I'm just gonna go ahead and attach this to the active. Use a flare starter. And make my opponent respond to this. I could have used Welder there, but I'm kind of saving my Welders for the Fire Crystal plays, and my opponent isn't going to be able to put on a ton of pressure here. And while they do keep playing draw supporters, they keep missing energies, so they can't play Guzma if they don't have energies in their hand. And it's just going to be a concede from my opponent, as they don't really have a whole lot going on. So you can see, as even though the Reshiram and Charizard deck can tend to brick at times, it's so strong that even in those situations, you can still win games. So we'll go ahead and just run another one here. Really loving this deck so far, and it has a pretty high skill cap with these green search, so it's not kind of like Blounds where you just play it and go brainless. I'm really enjoying it so far. See what we're playing against here. This looks to be a Zapdos deck with some Ultra Beast counters. Sorry about that, guys. And we are going to get to go first if we so choose. I am going to elect to go first. Not a horrible start here. We start the Reshiram Charizard, which isn't exactly what we want to see, but the Heat Factory is pretty nice for us. Again, we do have the Nest Ball switch to get into Volcanions whenever we so choose. This is definitely looking like a Zapdos deck. Get a custom catcher piece, that's pretty nice. And indeed a Zapdos deck it is. So I'm just going to go ahead and Nest Ball. Get these Volcanions out, as they are going to be the MVP in this matchup. Throw our Heat Factory down so we can get some draw going here. And this is exactly what we wanted to see. Go ahead and Welder. I was debating using the Pokégear before the Welder so I could make an absolute correct decision on what to Welder onto, but we have two Pokégears now, so we should be able to find a Guzma. If not, we do still have the switch here. Go ahead and use a Pokégear. Grab another Welder. I think I'm just going to hold the other Pokégear in hand. Nest Ball for the Volcanion. And I'm debating using the switch, but I don't really want to endanger our active Volcanion getting knocked out. So I am just going to pass here. See how our opponent does on his first turn. We see a Nest Ball, getting his Zapdos down immediately. See if they have some more playable cards, or if they just have to go for a Stellar Wish. See an Electro Power. And then a Lily for 5. So I'm not sure if I agree with this Electro Power play here. I like to really conserve these with Zapdos, as you are going to need them throughout the game very early on. And, you know, especially against Reshiram Charizard, 270 isn't the best number for you. So I am going to play non-GX heavy here and hopefully hit an Acerola off this Pokégear so I can just keep going in with Volcanions. Definitely an aggressive play for the Zapdos player. And we are just going to Pokégear. And we do hit the Acerola. That's going to be super nice for us. I'm going to go ahead and attach this here. Play the Acerola. This is going to be a really cool play here, as I am still going to be able to take the knockout on this Jirachi, and hopefully I can get into an energy off of this High Heat Blast. Yeah, my opponent knows he's in a pretty tough spot now, as long as I can keep rolling with attacks. It's not going to really help us out too much, but worst case scenario, we will be able to Flare Starter next turn. See a Guzma from our opponent. And just the Thunderous Assault. So yeah, without those Jirachis, my opponent's kind of starting to stall out here a little bit. And we don't really have a ton going on. We'll thin the deck out with this Nest Ball, get us another Volcanion down. And I am just going to go ahead and use the Switch and Flare Starter. That way we can get a guaranteed knockout next turn. Kind of diversify our energies here a little bit. But without those Jirachis, I'm not sure if my opponent has the gas to keep using their switch outs here. Let alone another Guzma for this Volcanion right here. We do see the switch. But yeah, looks like my opponent is just struggling enough to even get off the ground. Here we have a Fiery Flint. That would have been pretty nice last turn, but definitely is not a big deal. We'll get rid of the Choice Band and the Eevee and Snorlax. And go ahead... Sorry about that, guys. Go ahead and get some more energies attached to my Pokemon. I'm going to Welder. Only going to elect to do one, as I don't really want to put more than that on any of these Volcanions. Perfect. Then we're just going to attach for turn. Got a ton of options here, and use High Heat Blast for the knockout. Such an aggressive, powerful deck that can just steamroll over opponents if they're not drawing well, and even its bad matchups, it's just so good against them. The Volcanion is such a great strategy against these one-price decks. See a Tapu Koko Prism Star come down. I'm sure that's just to prevent my opponent from losing the game immediately here. And we just see a concession. Yeah, they didn't really have much going on. So we're already seeing the power of the Reshiram and Charizard deck here, and it's really just incredible how much it can do, even without using the actual Reshiram and Charizards. So we will run one more here for you guys. Great, seems like we're going to be playing against a water deck here, so I'm excited to try this out. Haven't gotten to play against one of these yet. This would have been a great hand to open up with the Nest Ball, the greens, the energies, the Heat Factory. Unfortunately, it looks like we're going to have to take a mulligan on that. This appears to be some sort of Greninja GX deck, so very interesting. Not a ton going on here, but maybe just enough. This Eevee and Snorlax could come in really huge against this deck here. And the 110 HP on the Articuno is going to be really nice from us as well, as even though it is able to one-shot us, we will be able to one-shot it right back. Gonna go ahead and use the Nest Ball. Get us another Volcanion out here. Put down our Eevee and Snorlax-GX. Gonna save the Power Plant to use on these Greninja GX's abilities. I'm not really sure what my opponent is playing quite yet. I assume they're gonna be able to take the knockout on this, but I do have the Fire Crystal to respawn with an immediate knockout with my Eevee and Snorlax-GX. And I'm just going to go ahead and load them all onto this guy here. Kind of go all in on the Eevee and Snorlax. As it really does just hit the perfect numbers. 120 with Dump Truck Press, and then the 240, if it's an evolution, will kind of take care of anything my opponent throws at us. See a Guzma? That's not what we wanted to see. Uh-oh. We've thankfully top decked the energy for turn, and we are just going to use Flare Starter. We're going to attach this to our active. That way we do have the retreat option for next turn. Finally see something coming down from our opponent to keep them in the game. See another Guzma. So that's pretty annoying, but I'm sure they will still be taking the knockout on this Volcanion here. See a Brooklyn Hill come down. Go ahead and search a Froakie out. Yep, and then just going to be a pass. Just going to go ahead and get aggressive here. Guzma up this Froakie. Look at our deck, make sure we haven't prized anything too important. We do have Flints this time, thankfully. Acerola, we have Welders. Everything is looking to be pretty good. Gonna hold on to this Nest Ball, nothing really that I want on my bench at the moment. And use our High Heat Blast. Trying to prevent these extra damage counters that the Frogadiers are going to put on us inevitably. See what our opponent has here for us. Kind of a strange deck my opponent seems to be playing. Jirachi Greninja with an Articuno base, so we do see the stretcher, so they are going to be getting their Froakies down. Seems like they're definitely just looking for a way to deal with this Eevee and Snorlax here. Now they've gotten themselves to the point where, unless they can play another Guzma, and I believe it would be their third, yeah, then they're in a lot of trouble here. And you can see how even the water decks don't really see a ton of success. Now I'm gonna kind of make a risky play here, just so I can make a Guzma play onto one of these Froakies. Gonna go ahead and remove my energies. Use the Fire Crystal, that way I can move them onto this other Volcanion here. And start hunting this Froakie. Now we do have this extra energy that we can power up our Eevee and Snorlax-GX with. And continue to High Heat Blast. And our opponent has had the attack ready with this Articuno for a while, but it just seems like they can't set up, and so they have to keep going into these Jirachis here. But they appear to be tired of me targeting down their Froakies, so they are sending up that Articuno. And now they are starting to get set up indeed. Go ahead and promote our Eevee and Snorlax-GX here. Attach another energy to it. I'm debating playing the Stretcher, but I think I'd rather just Nest Ball to get another Volcanion out here. And we're going to dump Truck Press. Next turn we may consider the Megaton Friends, that way we can draw a little bit of extra cards here. But the Pokégear should cover us there. Opponent takes a Cynthia off the Stellar Wish, so it looks like they're actually going to be able to play a draw supporter at this point. And since the first turn, they really haven't had a lot going on, so I don't really expect to see an attack out of my opponent this turn, but the Shrine comes down. That's going to be pretty annoying, and I think I am now going to bench this Power Plant. So, yep, they got the Frogadier out. They have the Shrine of Punishment out, and the Power Plant is now going to be put into play. Really showing how some resource management can help you out at key points in the game with this power plant here. And one heads from our opponent, so that is going to be good news from them. But I think it might just be a little bit too late at this point in the game for my opponent to recover from this. Honestly, I'm not really sure why they are electing to put the damage onto these Volcanions, as they will one-shot them with just about anything anyways. But you know what? It is their game plan and not mine. They don't have the Articuno in the active, so I'm just going to get aggressive and use these custom catchers here to pull up this Frogadier. And since I have the Fire Crystal in hand, I don't feel too bad about devoting this energy here. Throw the power plant down. Choice Band could help us a little bit later on, so I'm going to hold on to that and use Megaton Friends. Yeah, now we got just about anything we want going on. The Kukui gets us a little bit of draw, and taking the greens off the prizes should just about wrap this up for us. I don't think my opponent is going to have the firepower they're going to need to get past this Eevee and Snorlax-GX. Interesting, we actually see the Detective Pikachu Greninja coming down, and that might explain a little bit more why they are electing to hit these Volcanions. I'd kind of been expecting Greninja GX, but an interesting deck here indeed. Still not sure that my opponent's going to be able to do as much as they're wanting to here. Yeah, and that's not even gonna do a whole lot for my opponent. Gonna hold on to the Heat Factory, don't really have too much of a reason to play it. Use the greens, get a custom catcher. And I'm just gonna go ahead and grab an Acerola here for next turn, if I elect to use it. I'm going to attach to this Volcanion just in case something happens to my Eevee and Snorlax, but just keep on dump truck pressing. And we don't get the attack off. I actually forgot about this thing's ability. Silly me, but I think we can still manage to work around it with our custom catchers, and they don't appear to be taking knockouts anytime soon. Go ahead and get rid of these escape boards here. Check my discard pile, and we don't have any Guzmas remaining, so we are going to have to take a knockout eventually on this Greninja here. So at this point I'm debating whether I want to do it now or if I want to try and save it for a little bit later on in the game. I'm going to play the Kukui just to get a little bit of extra draw power here. And this is a tough one. I think I'm just going to continue to try to dump truck press through this thing. And we do get the tails, so with the two custom catchers in my hand, this game should be just about wrapped up. I'm not envisioning my opponent taking a knockout on this Eevee and Snorlax-GX this turn. And if they do, I have the Pokégear plus Fire Crystal to help us get into another attack with Volcanion, so I don't really envision our opponent being able to do a whole lot. And they do take the double knockout on Volcanions, but that is not going to be enough. Go ahead and throw them the well played. And use our custom catchers here. and just dump truck press. So yeah, I think that's going to be about it from us today, guys. You've obviously seen the power of the Reshiram Charizard deck before, and even now showcasing it just a little bit more, being able to roll through all the decks we've seen. Even a water deck couldn't quite handle it. So I hope you all have a great rest of the day, and from Team No Leek, go ahead and like our Facebook page, subscribe to our channel, and see you guys next time.